Hi, Sonal.
Hi, Deeparshini.
Hi, everybody. Hi, everybody. A very good afternoon to you, and welcome to today's webinar on Going Big with Innovative Science from Idea to Product. This webinar is going to be literally about going big, or the Biotechnology Ignition Grant, India's biggest funding opportunity at early stage innovative ideas for bio-innovators. And BIG is, as you may know, a flagship funding program by BIRAC, and CCAMP has been a partner for BIRAC from the inception of BIG. And it so happens that we are celebrating a decade of BIG, the funding program, and also a decade of CCAMP as a big partner. And it's wonderful to share with you guys that it is the 20th call is currently on, and we would like to invite you all to apply for BIG with us. And today's discussion with my colleagues, Dr. Natarajan Ganapathi, the program lead of early stage funding and entrepreneurship at CCAMP, and Dr. Vishal Bhardwaj, scientific consultant at CCAMP, is going to be all about that, how you can leverage BIG for your innovation idea. And over to you, Nilanjana.
Thank you. Thanks, Deeparshini. And thank you everyone for logging in today. I'll request my colleague, Dr. Vishal, to start with the workshop, and I'll follow. Vishal, over to you.
Is my screen visible?
Yes.
Okay, I'll be keeping the video off during the talk in the interest of bandwidth. Okay, thanks everyone for joining. Good afternoon. As it was advertised, the session is on understanding how a grant like BIG, or Biotechnology Ignition Grant, works, and how it can allow you to test your ideas from their nascent ideation stage, and take them to very last product, commercialized product stage, and what all you can do to smoothen the process, we would like to assist you in this journey as an innovator, as an entrepreneur. So with that, let's begin. We are from CCAMP. We are a Bangalore-based organization, and though the talk is primarily on the BIG, the 20th call, which is open till 15th Feb, we would like to take this opportunity and do talk about a couple of things that we do at CCAMP, and then we'll finally merge with the overall theme of the talk, which is the BIG scheme. So we at CCAMP we were set up by DBT with a clear mandate to be an enabler of cutting-edge life science research and innovation in the country. And with a larger goal of bringing the academic community and the industrial players within the country together. How do we do that? So, well, first thing is we are part of Bangalore Life Science Cluster and the overall Bangalore Bio Innovation System. So within the Bangalore Life Science Cluster, we are there with INSTEM and NCBA. So that gives us a good handle of the scientific and research community part. And being in Bangalore, the biotech hub of India, allows us to sort of sample whatever is happening, which is the most recent and most impactful thing within the bioinnovation space, and sort of connect them together. So we, as mentioned, that we do different things. We have different programs and opportunities for enabling research and innovation in the country, and our focus is mostly on the life sciences sector. And we do basically three things. In terms of facilitating research, we provide technology resources for academia, startups, industry. So anyone out there within these multiple domains interested, doing a good quality research, they need instrumentation help, they need training, they need other support. We help with that. We are also a translational setup ourselves, where we are doing active collaborations with academic community and looking to develop technologies where we connect with academia and do research, but which is primarily aimed at taking the research towards industry and not really just basic science. And third, which is more relevant to the today's theme, we offer programs and opportunities which allows budding innovators to take up their ideas and think about converting them into products through various entrepreneurial programs for academics, for startups, and for individual innovators. So very quickly, in terms of technology resources, we offer access and we offer training to all these high-end technologies which are available in the Bangalore Life Science Cluster. These include mass spec facilities like proteomics, metabolomics, lipidomics, etc. It also includes, mouse genome engineering and transgenic Drosophila facilities, and a state-of-the-art microscopic facility, and several other technologies, several other platforms which are available to you on a not-for-profit basis. So you're never really paying for the instrument, you're really paying for your experiment, which works out to be a much cheaper deal. And this is available to all researchers, whether they're in academia or industry. In terms of developing innovations, we have an in-house R&D lab. We run a program called DIA. And within DIA, we offered a national call for translation of research and commercialization, which just concluded in the month of January, where we look to actively, look to have active collaborations with academia, and then think about their innovations, think about their science becoming, industry-ready innovations. So these are some of the technologies which were essentially lab research work at several different research organizations, through CCAMP have now collaborated and now are ready for, are industry ready, are open for licensing. And these include areas like neurodegeneration, HIV, microfluidics, etc. So something for again to talk about if anyone interested. Coming to the main theme of the program, main theme of the talk for today, entrepreneurship program. So CCAMP offers a whole range of entrepreneurial opportunities for innovators and startups, and these include funding, these include incubation facilities, these include mentorship programs, and this also include acceleration programs, which is a different kind of mentorship program, where an already established innovator or entrepreneur is now thinking about scaling up. And now, so your interaction, your business models, etc., are of very different nature, and you require very different kind of support. Okay, so within the funding domain, CCAMP offers a whole range of funding opportunities, which start from very early stage like BIG scheme, which we'll talk about in a moment, to bridge funding or seed support funding, as well as late stage acceleration or scale up funding. Besides that, we also offer opportunities of getting connected with private investors, which are facilitated through CCAMP. And these include VCs, these include angel investors, etc. And CCAMP does a whole range of such programs also. There's a whole lot more to gain by connecting with the CCAMP ecosystem. So far, CCAMP has already supported in around 10 years or so, over 250 odd startups. Some of them are on the slide. 250 would be would need a much bigger canvas than the current slide. So this would suffice for now. And within this, you can see there are a lot of companies and there are a lot of individual names. So these are individual innovators which started off their journey as innovators with us and now possibly have gone on to make their companies. So you can come to CCAM's ecosystem as an already established company or also as an individual at a very early stage, and then use this ecosystem to your advantage and start thinking about setting up companies. So as I said, we have supported over 250 odd startups to different programs, and these startups have been spread across all different teams in life sciences and biotechnology that you can think of, ranging from human healthcare to animal to agri to environment, etc. So today we would like to share our experience so far, what we can offer you and what all tips you can learn, which will allow you to gain from the experience of these innovators and think about a better proposal, think about a better chance, a better shot at converting your innovation into a product. So with that, I would like to come back to today's theme. So thanks for sticking by. So let's talk about what do we mean by innovations per se. What does the word innovation means to us? So given we are working in life science space, it must be a novel technology and product or a service which has a clear application in one of the areas of life sciences. It could be healthcare, agriculture, environment. Healthcare could be human healthcare or animal healthcare. And most importantly, because it's an innovation and it has to, for it to become a successful innovation, it should be useful for society. And given society, the route to society goes through industry. It is important to understand what does industry want. So clearly an innovation, a successful innovation should also be industry friendly. There's 3 points essentially determine what a good innovation means for us, what a successful innovation means for us. Okay. Okay. So one thing is that the innovation process is a stepwise process. No innovation gets developed in one stage, go through different stages of development. And these are typically measured through the metric of technology readiness levels or TRL levels. And you would hear, I'm sure most of you already know this. If not, you would be hearing a lot more of this going forward within the BIG setup also. So technology readiness levels are essentially a metric designed to understand where are you in the innovation development process. So TRL1 would mean that you are purely at an idea stage, while TRL9 would mean that you are already ready for commercialization and you're taking your innovation to the market. And then these have been then further divided into multiple steps. So from proof of principles to proof of concept or POC to early stage and late stage validations, and then pre-commercialization. So essentially at every stage, when you come up with an idea, you have some bit of data, you are placed on this TRL map. And then through your own intuition, you are always saying that I would like to go from this stage to this stage. So your stage of development would be happening in this fragmented stepwise manner. So clearly, if innovation development is happening in stages, your funding opportunity would also be coming off in the stage-wise manner, because research or R&D in life sciences is an inherent slow process. Let's say compared to something like tech space or computation space, etc. Nobody would fund you that have this much amount of money and go from TRL1 to TRL. So as your innovation development is happening in stage-wise manner, your funding opportunities would also come in this fragmented brackets. So TRL1 to 4 would constitute an early stage funding. BIG scheme that we will talk about is an example of that. From TRL4 onwards, when a POC has been established, is what is called as a mid-stage funding or a bridge funding or a seed support funding. And once your product or technology or innovation has been validated, once you're taking it to market, that is a late-stage funding, which could include scale-up, acceleration, etc. Okay, so it is very important to understand that at all stages, when you are developing your innovation is becoming more and more ready for industry, which means it is less and less risky. An idea stage is the most risky stage, while when you are already in innovation, there is no risk anymore, right? So it becomes very important to understand the value of POC here. And my colleague, Dr. Nilanjana, will go over this in the context of BIG. But here I would like to touch upon this angle of what exactly is POC. POC, in a way, is essentially a stage of innovation development where at least at lab level, at least under defined conditions, your innovation, the core principle of your innovation has been validated. It appears that now this innovation is likely to work, which you will further validate by going to the field or actual relevant settings. But at least in defined conditions, at least in lab level settings, at least in early stage R&D, you have shown that your idea works. So it is not as risky as just discussing your idea. At this stage onwards, you can start approaching companies or partners, industry partners, for collaboration, for support, or even commercialization. At very early stage, like idea or just proof of principle, chances of finding such support would be very, very less. Hence, any early stage opportunity that you get, something like BIG, is tremendously important, because at this stage, you will not get many funding opportunities. Once you have shown POC, from here on, your innovation process becomes slightly straightforward in terms of taking it to industry. You are likely to encounter other sort of difficulties, but at least your idea appears to work. So there are a lot more people who will be listening to you. Okay. Coming to what exactly is required from an innovation, a person who's pitching for an innovation. So when you are presenting your innovation as a proposal, as a written proposal, or as a pitch, you're essentially presenting three things. You're presenting a core scientific idea. You're presenting the business plan, that how will you take this idea and sell it. And you're also suggesting, showcasing your team. How is your team capable of doing this? So, to be more precise, in scientific idea, you're saying exactly what is it that you intend to create, why do you intend to create this, and how will you go about creating this? What will be the process that will be followed for creating this? In business plan, you are enlisting set of conditions, players, stakeholders, etc., who will be buying this from you, how will you be selling the product, and where all will you go, what all markets will you go to, right? And with team, you are trying to set up confidence within your reviewers that you are the correct person for delivering this innovation. This is what is expected from any innovation proposal out there, whether it is BIG or any other scheme. And a good proposal, a basic proposal, is supposed to at least explain these things. Coming to what will constitute a good proposal will go one step further, which will further take these three stages or three metrics in which you are being judged, and provide more relevant and much better information, is much better prepared in some ways. So a good proposal would, within the scientific idea part, further break up the core idea and present it in this particular manner. So a good proposal would first start off with the need for an innovation. So you would always explain what exactly is the problem that you're trying to solve, the specific problem that you're trying to solve. So for instance, let's say a person is creating an early cancer diagnostic, a tool or a device for which would enable one particular form of cancer being diagnosed as early as possible. Here, you are not really curing a cancer. So if you would like to explain what all cancer does and therapeutics, etc., that's not helping you. Your tool may just be helping one particular kind of cancer. So you cannot then talk about the entire cancer ambit, the entire cancer canvas, right? So you are always listing out the specific problem, and then you are showcasing that there are solutions that exist, and these solutions fall short of solving that current problem by these means. There are these reasons why these currently available solutions do not work, or do not work satisfactorily. So these could also mean that a solution that works, but it is very expensive, right? So that also does not work because it is not affordable to many people. So that itself is a problem. So bringing a same level or a similar level diagnostic with a much cheaper alternative would be a very good solution in this particular problem. So a good proposal would highlight the current need. The need is because there is a problem that exists, and the solutions that are currently there fall short in with these caveats, and hence you propose a solution which can solve this particular problem. The solution that you propose is novel, which means it's not something which is clearly obvious. You're doing it for the first time, and there are not that many people around who have done this, and you're backing this up with clear science. It has a clear impact. So you are trying to tackle something which is worth tackling. It's a useful innovation. If developed successfully, will help society in many ways. And the solution that you're proposing is feasible, which means it is backed up by the science. Either you have done some work or you are quoting some literature to support your claims that what you are proposing is likely to work, right? And then you're also listing the competition. This again goes to the problem solution part, where you are saying that you're not the first one to come up with a solution. There are already these solutions available. But as I mentioned, that these solutions have these caveats. They fall short in solving the problem. My solution, or the solution that I intend to propose, is better, is going to solve these problems, right? Which could include high efficacy, it can include more affordability, easier to manufacture within India, etc., right? So that would be the scientific idea part. Coming to business plan, a good proposal is going to highlight within the business plan who are the users and who are the buyers, right? So in case of a drug, a user will be a person who will be taking that pill that you are making because they struggle or have that particular pathology against which you have made the pill, right? So it could be a blood pressure pill or a diabetic pill, etc., etc. More often than not, you will not be selling your pills directly to these people who struggle, right? More often than not, you would be selling your technology, your innovation as a patent to a buyer, to a company, right? To a large pharma company, which would be your prospective buyer. So here, in this particular case, your user and buyer are two different people. Your users are going to be people who, so for an anti-diabetic pill, users will be people who are suffering with diabetes, but your buyer would be companies which already make such pill and would like to take this innovation from you. It's very important to have this distinction because this determines your plan. So second case where you are directly selling to your customers is what we call as B2C, a business to customer approach. In case when you're selling it to companies is what we call as a B2b approach or business to business approach, right? You as a business selling your developed innovation to another business party. You should be clearly aware of what the market is and which particular market are you targeting. Is your innovation a local innovation? Will it be only relevant, let's say, within Karnataka setup or within Indian setup, or it's a global innovation? It is something that would be needed by many people abroad also. What's the market size? What are other different competing players within the market? So within the scientific idea, when we talked about competition, there the competition was with competing technologies, other solutions. In business plan, your competition is with players, with companies, which offer those solutions, right? So there is this dichotomy of competition in idea and business plan. And it's very clear to understand which are which. In scientific idea competition, your technology should be better than other competing solutions. In business plan, your competitors are also your potential buyers, because these are the companies which are already there in that space. If you make a solution, chances are they would like to buy this, right? Hence, it is important to know who are all different players, all different companies in this space that you're working in, and who would be happy to take your innovation going forward. Coming to team, a good proposal highlights the different members which are part of team and advisors which are part of team, covering different roles. So essentially, within the member side and advisors side, you would be showcasing that we have the necessary skill, etc., on the scientific ground. So if a technique requires or innovation requires a particular expertise, there is somebody in the team which is an expert in that. So for instance, if you are developing an app and you're going to take a lot of data, which is of clinical nature, hence you should have people in your team who understand how to make an app. You have people who understand AI ML if you're using that, and you're also connected with clinical players like doctors, etc., either as your team members or as your advisors, so that you can get access to that those data, right? You will be able to develop an actual innovation. Hence, a good proposal highlights all this. Now, this is a very ideal case, and if you have all these things or you can showcase all these things, great. What does happen more often than not, that a good proposal or a near good proposal may, let's say, be lacking in one or two of these aspects. In that case, So for instance, let's say you do not have a business advisor, okay, or you haven't really done a market level analysis of your innovation. It is good that you showcase this, that you understand what is required, right? So which means if you do not have a business advisor, a good proposal highlights that we understand that this proposal going forward would require a business advisor, and we are looking for it, and you should be looking for it. Even if you do not have a business mentor at the time of application, by the time your grant comes in or by the time your work starts moving, you have a business advisor to help you with those matters. So a good proposal, even if it lacks one or few things, does accounts or at least showcases or shows to a reviewing party that we understand what is required and we are looking for those solutions. If we don't have them now, we should have them in next 6 months. If you do not have or you do not talk about it, that rather looks bad, because then it sort of appears that you are ill prepared. Hence, why not come back again, right? So a good proposal always tries to show what they have and what they do not have. They figure out a plan and explain that we are looking for these solutions. We understand what is required. So with that, we'll now switch to the actual BIG scheme. And here I would request my colleague, Dr. Natarajan, to now take over and explain what exactly is required for for you to apply for a BIG scheme. So over to you, Natarajan.
Thank you, Vishal. Let me just share my screen now. Vishal, if you could stop share.
My computer is acting up.
Yeah. My screen is visible?
Yes, you can move.
Okay, great. Thank you, Vishal. You've heard about what constitutes a good proposal. I will just talk a little bit about the various stages that a typical project goes through, and also the various details under the big scheme that will help you apply for this particular scheme. So typically a project goes through these 5 different phases: idea, proof of concept, prototype, innovation, and scale up. And in each of these different stages, you have different kinds of funding opportunities that are available to you. So as an early stage startup, that is at the idea or proof of concept stage, most funding typically comes in the form of grants. The Biotech Ignition Grant is one such scheme that is available to early stage startups. Once you have demonstrated prototype, you have some preliminary concept, some data available to you, and you have an innovation, you're moving on into the validation phase. At this point, there are other people who are willing to invest in your company, small amounts. So typically, this constitutes pre-seed and seed rounds of investment from small investors like angel investors or investors who invest in very, very early stage startups, some social investors and people like that who provide bridge funding for startups. And once you've completely demonstrated and validated your technology, you have validation trials, you have pilot trials in place. If you're developing a drug, you have some amount of data from animal trials and preclinical trials, etc. At that point, you reach the scale-up stage where you have access to acceleration funding, which is mainly large-scale funding from larger investors. So at CCAMP, we offer all of these funding opportunities to startup. Our range of grants and investments starts from as low as 25 lakhs and can go up to 3 to 3.3 CR per startup. So coming to the Biotech Ignition Grant, like Debashini mentioned, this is the 20th call for applications. So this is the 10th year of the program and running. And this program has sort of changed the scenario for biotech startups in the country. It's been one of the flagship programs of BIRAC and CCAMP. And this has sort of helped transform the biotech innovation space in the country over the last 10 years. It has provided a lot of impetus to startups, early stage innovators and individual innovators to sort of translate their technology into the market. So the big scheme offers up to 50 lakhs of funding for individual innovators or very, very early stage startups that have an idea with strong commercial potential. It's not an academic grant. It's not meant for basic research in an academic university or institute. It is for innovators who want to translate the technology into the market. And like Vishal mentioned, commercial potential and societal impact are two important factors that the review panel looks at when they're reviewing a proposal for the big scheme. The grant is provided for a duration of 18 months, and the money can be used to establish and validate proof of concept. I'm sure you've heard this word many times before, proof of concept. So I'll explain what I mean by proof of concept in the coming slides. But in the meantime, let me tell you that this, like I said, this grant was instituted to encourage innovators to take their technologies into the market. So the current call for applications is open till the 15th of February, 5:30 p.m. The deadline is not 12 midnight, it's 5:30 p.m. on Feb 15th, 2022. The call opens twice a year typically. Every year there's one call that opens in the month of January 1st, and another call that opens in July. So 2 calls per year, and this has been going on for 10 years now, and this is the 20th call for applications. So while the name says Biotechnology Ignition Grant, it doesn't mean that the scheme supports only biotech related projects. Any project that has application in the life sciences domain, including diagnostics, healthcare, medtech, devices, applications of artificial intelligence and machine learning in biology, therapeutics, agriculture, veterinary sciences, waste management using biological or industrial processes, etc. So all of this would fall within the scope of the big scheme. And as a startup, the big scheme is probably one of the earliest stage grants that a startup or an individual can avail to sort of take their technology into the market. So like I mentioned before, idea, POC, prototype, and finally scale up are the 4 stages to which a startup goes through. And the big grant provides funds to demonstrate idea and achieve proof of concept at the laboratory scale. So big is one of the very, very few, I think it's the only grant that also is available to individual innovators to encourage them to take their product into the market. And it's one of the very few grants available for the idea to POC stage of startups. Post this, of course, there are a lot of other opportunities. Some startups start generating revenue. There's the option of sale, licensing, and buyout at this stage. And of course, investments will also come in. But at the idea to POC stage where the project has not yet been de-risked, BIG is one of the very, very few schemes that supports startups in the life sciences domain at this stage. So by proof of concept, of course, idea, I think most of you are familiar with. It's an idea that you have that you want to sort of test out and see if you can convert this to a product. Proof of concept is, it's very, very dependent on the sector theme that you're working in. But in general, proof of concept is when you've demonstrated something at the laboratory scale. So for example, if you're developing medical device, then you have a preliminary prototype, you have an alpha prototype that is now ready for testing on a small group of patients. And based on feedback from those tests, you will then build a revised modified prototype. So that preliminary prototype that you have developed would constitute proof of concept. If you're, for example, developing a drug, then you probably have, you've identified a few lead molecules. You have characterized them in the laboratory. Preliminary characterization, mass spec, NMR, etc. has been done. You may have completed a little bit of studies, in vitro studies in cell culture, etc. And you probably have some promising results on the safety, toxicity, etc. on the 1 or 2 lead molecules that you have. So this basic demonstration of your idea at the laboratory level under standardized condition is what would constitute proof of concept. Beyond this, you will next move into large scale sort of purification of the molecule and then testing it out in animal models, etc. So anything that you can demonstrate at lab scale repeatedly would constitute proof of concept. So there are various kinds of applicants who can apply for the big grant. Like I mentioned, an individual applicant, an individual innovator can apply. A group of people can apply as long as one person can represent the group as the primary investigator. And of course, an early stage startup can apply for the Biotech Ignition Grant. All of these can either be from the academia or the industry, but the project that you're applying for must have potential for commercialization and should ultimately lead to a product that can enter the market for basic research. So whether you're an academic or an industry person, you will have to bear this in mind when you're writing up your proposal. So from the academia, senior students, postdocs, faculty members can apply, provided they show intent to form a startup and take the tech into the market. From the industry, of course, you can be an employee, a founder, or a veteran from the industry. As long as you fulfill the eligibility criteria, you can apply to the scheme. So this is not meant for basic research. It's not meant for late stage studies like validation, clinical trials, or CE certifications, things like that. It is meant for idea to proof of concept stage startups and individual innovators, provides up to 50 lakhs, and the duration of the project is 18 months. And the money can be used to cover working capital during the period of the grant. It can be used to pay salary for human resources, anyone that you employ to help with your project. Travel, IP filing, patenting costs, etc. can be covered under the scheme. I'll talk a little bit about the eligibility criteria for the big scheme. Individual applicants must mandatorily be Indian citizens. The primary applicant has to be, and if you're applying as a group, then a primary applicant has to be identified as the project leader. And for an individual, it's mandatory to be incubated in a recognized technology business incubator once the grant is approved. For the application, all you need is a letter of intent for incubation from an incubator, and CCAM will be happy to provide that. Just share the details of your project with us, your title and the title of your project and your full name and designation, and we'll generate a letter of intent for incubation. If you're faculty at an academic institute, you will also require a no objection certificate from your university. There is a specific format for this, and again, I would urge you to write to us, and we will be happy to provide the template to you. If you're employed in a private company, then you will have to step down from your position if the grant is approved for you. Not at the time of application, but once the grant is approved, you will have to step down from your role in the company. For companies, the company should not be more than 5 years old, and 51% of the ownership of the company should lie with Indian citizens, and the project leader of the application must be a shareholder in the company, preferably the founder, co-founder, or director in the company. Individual applicants who apply for the scheme should not hold shares in any other biotech company. Basically, if you're applying as an individual and you already have a company, then you won't be eligible. You have to apply through the company if you've already formed a company. If you're applying as a company, then a promoter in the company cannot be a promoter in another ineligible life sciences company. So this has to be your first venture, and you cannot have another successful venture and still apply for this scheme. Vishal has covered most of these aspects. So again, the big scheme follows the same format. You will talk about your idea, your technology, cover the novelty, impact, feasibility, and competition that is currently available in the market. How you plan to take this technology into the market, who your buyers are, who your market is, who your competition is, and of course, cover the team strengths and the members and advisors that you have for your project. So this is an overview of the actual application form. The application form is divided into these 10 different subheadings. You will start with a proposal summary, where you'll talk briefly about the problem statement that you have identified, the gap in the market, and what your technology is. You will talk about the objectives and approach, what you intend to, how you intend to solve the problem, the gap that you have identified, what you will be doing in the 18-month time frame, and how you'll take your project forward. In the third section, you will talk about novelty, how your work, your tech is different from what is already available in the market. Is it cheap? Is it more economical? Is it better? Does it have better sensitivity, specificity? Is it faster? Price cannot be the only consideration unless it's a huge difference. For example, if you're developing something that will substitute import products at the moment, then it can still be considered, but we always urge all our applicants to have a differentiator other than just the cost of the device or product that you're building. In the next segment, you will talk about the opportunity in the market, how large the market is in your specific sector, who the players are and how much of the market they cover, how much of the market is remaining for you to cover, etc. So these are some numbers here on who your customers are, etc. will be included in this section. Next, you'll talk about challenges that you may encounter during the course of your project. By challenges, I mean, for example, if you're working on a drug, then you will have to go through clinical trials. You will require ethical clearances from hospitals for patient trials. If you're developing a device, you will need certifications. You will need regulatory approvals depending on the nature of the device. Is it non-invasive, invasive? Different kinds of regulations are applicable. So you have to have an idea of all of these hurdles that you will face during the course of your project, and how you're going to sort of go about addressing each of these challenges that you may encounter. Preliminary work in the next section, while it's not mandatory, BIG does support idea stage projects, but it's always better if you have some data to support your theory or your idea. If you have some background work that you've conducted in your laboratory, you have some literature survey, you have some backing on why you feel your idea or your technology is going to work and can be successfully translated into the market, that always helps, because most people now come in with at least some preliminary data in their proposals. So it always helps to include this data. Number 7, you'll talk about end outcomes. What is the final outcome of your project? Are you going to build a device for customers? Are you going to have a service that you will offer for the industry or the academia or customers in general? Are you going to out-license your technology to a larger, say, pharmaceutical company? So what is the outcome of your project will be covered under this scheme. Your commercialization plan, while all the reviewers understand that these are early stage projects, they still want to see what your vision is for the future, how you plan to commercialize your technology. Are you going to take it to the market yourself? Are you going to go to business model? All of these things will be covered under the commercialization plan. Intellectual property is again it's an important aspect in the Biotech Ignition grant. You will cover here, if you already have filed for intellectual property, you have patents, then you will specify that here. If not, you're at least expected to do a preliminary sort of Google search on patents that might overlap with your technology, list them out and specify how your technology is different from what has already been protected or patented. You will also need to ensure that if there are overlapping technologies, you will have to ensure that you have freedom to operate in the geography that you intend to commercialize. And the last section is references, where you can upload either your own publications if you have any, or any relevant papers and other information that sort of would be okay for your project. So those details can be uploaded here. In the application, you will also be required to upload something called a concept note, where you'll describe your technology in detail, because all of these sections are limited by the number of words you can input. So there's something called a concept note where you can explain in detail your technology with pictures and graphs and other images that you want to include. And you will also upload a pitch deck, basically a slide deck of 8 to 10 slides summarizing your technology and your business plan. So this is the process for applications every year. The national call for proposals opens twice a year on the 1st of Jan and 1st of July. The applications are completely online. No other applications are encouraged. So the application has to be submitted on the BIRAC portal, and the link for the application form is available on the CCAMP website. Once the applications are submitted and the deadline is completed, the deadline for the current call is Feb 15th. So once the deadline is over, there's an eligibility screening that is done by the team at CCAMP to ensure that the projects that have been submitted qualify the eligibility criteria that I spoke about before. After this, there is a preliminary screening committee that looks at the proposal for fit within the big scheme. The proposal has to be something that can be translated into the industry and not an academic proposal. It has to fall within the scope of big. It has to be within the life sciences domain. So all of these are looked at in the PSE stage. Post this as a technical online review of your proposal. 5 reviewers will review the proposal, and based on the average score, there's a cutoff that is determined. And if your proposal falls above that cutoff, then you'll move on to the next stage, which involves presentation to a panel of reviewers. And this happens theme-wise. So there are 5 different themes typically: drugs, devices, diagnostics, industrial biotech, and agriculture. So your proposal will be assigned to one of these themes, and you will present to that panel. The panel again scores your proposals, and an average is calculated. A final cutoff is determined in the expert selection committee meeting. And if your proposal falls above that cutoff, then you're selected for financial and technical due diligence, which is conducted by CCAP. And once you've cleared the due diligence process, funds will be released and you will start your project. So here I just wanted to list out a few proposals that CCAMP has supported over the last few years. So openwater.in was a startup, is a startup that was started by an academic entrepreneur. Dr. Sanjeev was faculty at the Indian Institute of Science, and this was a translation of his work in his laboratory. They have now commercialized this technology and are in the market. They have a technology for water treatment and management, and this technology does not involve any waste. Like, RO water, I think almost 50% of the water is wasted during the purification process. So there's no water wastage here. There are no membranes, no chemicals. It's completely eco-friendly, and there's no fine fabrication involved, and better TDS removal. So all of these features have been incorporated into this water management device, and they've now commercialized this and are in the market for industry scale water purification, for household scale water purification, and also for small drinking water gadgets. Pandora Technologies was started by a group of students, and they're working in the tissue engineering and regenerative medicine space. So they use 3D printing to build functional tissues that can be used for drug screening in cancer. They have also built something called bioengineered cornea, which can be used to treat cataract and other disorders of the eye. Sepio Health is another startup that has been incorporated by an academic professor from the Indian Institute of Stem Cell Biology and Regenerative Medicine, INSTEM. Dr. Praveen Vemula and his team had developed Anti-Pesticides Cream, a cream for farmers. So basically what happens is when organophosphate pesticides are used, they're sprayed on the fields extensively. The farmer lands up inhaling the pesticide, and some of it sticks to the skin and then enters the bloodstream through that pathway. And it's extremely toxic to the human body. So this laboratory, they developed a skin cream that can block the pesticide and degrade it on the skin so that it doesn't enter the bloodstream. And this work has now been translated into the industry. They've successfully validated their technology in animal models, and they're moving on to human trials now. And a company has been incorporated to take the technology forward. So I'll stop here. I think Vishal has already showed the slide. These are just some of the startups that we have funded over the last 10 years or so. And our impact in the life sciences ecosystem has been quite significant. We have supported over 250 startups through our various programs. Over 50 crore of fund has been dispersed to startups, early stage startups, to help them commercialize their technologies. Several have gone on to receive follow-on funding, and there are many products in the life sciences market through CCAM startups. And the cumulative valuation of our startups now is over 3,000 CR. So the advantages of partnering with CCAM for the big scheme and for the other schemes that we have. At CCAMP, we provide funds. We have the expertise and the experience of dealing and helping life sciences startups over the last 10 years. We provide IP-related assistance. We have an exclusive tech transfer platform, an OTT cell that will help you file your patents and translate your products into the market. We offer networking and outreach services, we are connected with several academia and industries across Bangalore and the country and even globally. And we showcase our startups to all of these connects that we have built over the years. We offer deep dive extensive mentorship programs to startups and individual innovators. So being part of an exciting deep science campus with both NCBS and INSTEM within the same compound and many other big research institutes located nearby, we're able to offer that deep science connect that is required by life sciences startups. We are located in Bangalore, which is the biotech hub of the country, and we have leveraged this to have extensive networks and connects across the ecosystem. And we are home to top-notch facilities and resources. We have a state-of-the-art incubation facility and many other services that we offer. And numerous funding opportunities and scale-up opportunities are available through CCAM. I'd also like to just take this opportunity to thank and acknowledge all our collaborators and funding agencies that are listed here. So thank you all. I have put in the details of our website here. For the big scheme, please write to us with your queries, your questions at the following email address, ccamp_big@ccam.res.in. That is ccamp_big@ccam.res.in. And we are also on Twitter. Our Twitter handle is ccamp_Bangalore. So I'll stop here and we'll be happy to take questions from the audience.
Yeah. Thank you, Nilanjana. Thank you, Vishal. We will start the Q&A session now, and some of you have placed in your questions on the Q&A box. We encourage all of you to put in your questions in the Q&A box and not in the chat window. However, we will answer whatever is there in the chat window as well. Also, you can also raise your hand if necessary. Then we will maybe give you a chance to speak during the speak live and take your question live. Also, I think there may be some questions from the YouTube stream. I think I will copy paste them in the chat box as well. Thank you, Nilan.
Thanks, Debashini. So I can see some questions in the chat box. Maybe I can start with those, if that's okay.
Yes, absolutely.
So I'll start with the first one. I have answered the first one actually, Pratap. We'll go with Joby. Joby from Abrin Aldrich. Do we have any business incubation facility for agriculture, industrial, biotech startup companies? Yes, CCAMP offers incubation and business support facility to start any startup in the life sciences domain. It does not necessarily have to be a biotech startup. As long as your product, your technology is in the life sciences domain, CCAMP does incubate startups in all of these sectors. And apart from this, there are many others who also do incubate startups in these specific sectors. Kalaivani, we've been doing research based on nutraceuticals preparation from pigmented rice varieties for polycystic ovarian syndrome and cancer with seed money from our institute. Funding, so okay. So the ideal funding scheme again for an early stage startup like this or an early stage group like this would be the Biotech Ignition grant. Apart from this, if you've already incorporated a company, there's also something called Startup India Seed Fund Scheme, which you can explore. But if you're an individual, then the big scheme is the only one that provides funding for individuals as well. So you could consider that. But however, I must mention here that you cannot apply from your university. Your university cannot apply on your behalf. You have to apply as an individual applicant, or a group of individuals can apply after identifying one project leader. Nitin has asked, can we mention mentors to be added to our project in future milestones? Vishal, would you like to cover that?
Yes, but it would be good to have. If you already know someone, you can possibly write their name. If it is a relevant expertise, you should definitely get in touch. But at the time of application, you can mention that you're looking for a particular mentor in that area. But that would mean that if your application is selected for TP round, which would come possibly 4 months, 3-4 months down the line, you would have found someone. If you're still saying that, oh, we are still looking for it, it will look as though you're delaying that. So if you are really looking for it, show, and then hopefully by the time your actual interview comes around, you have someone to show.
Thanks, Vishal. Are there any plans to replicate the CCAMP model in different cities, at least the metros? If already replicated, can you list out which center exists in which city? So I'd like to specify here that you don't have to be in Bangalore to be associated with CCAMP. We'll be happy to connect with you. For the big scheme especially, you don't have to be even in South India. Wherever you are in India, you can apply with CCAMP as your big partner. We will be responsible for the implementation of the scheme for your project, but you don't have to move to Bangalore. You don't have to be incubated in Bangalore or even located nearby. You can still associate with us wherever you are. So there are many other incubation centers all over the country, and lists are available on various websites. But again, you don't have to be in Bangalore to be associated with CCAMP. You can be anywhere in the country and still be in touch with us. Manish Thakur has asked, can you explain what novel means? If I'm going to improve something that is already existing, does this come under novel? Vishal, would you like to take that?
So yes, if you are changing something, then yes, that itself qualifies as something novel. But whatever means that you are choosing to improve, right? You're making some modification. This modification should be something that hasn't been attempted by someone else first. Second is, if you are changing something and improving something by, let's say, just 5% or 10%, it would not be an impactful innovation. So if you're changing something and making it much more efficient, let's say by 2-fold, 3-fold or so, but you're making it more affordable, right? A test which would ordinarily take, let's say, 1,000 rupees, and now you're giving an alternative at 300 or 200 rupees or 100 rupees, then it does really make it interesting, impactful, and novel. So yes, changing something that already exists qualifies as novel, so long as the modification that you're making has not been attempted before.
Thanks, Vishal. The next one, Vasudha, problem is in writing research proposal, help is definitely needed. So we'll be happy to help you with your application. Once you have a rough draft of your application in the specified format, the format again is available on the BIRAC website, and the link to that is available on the CCAMP website. I will also put the link in the chat box towards the end of the webinar today. So once you have a rough draft, please do send it to us, and we'll be happy to go through your application and give you feedback on how you can improve and tailor it for the Biotech Ignition grant. Next question is from Chandrasekharan. We are a startup having DIPP number since 2013. The application says only 5-year-old startup should apply. We have a good idea for scale-up stage and are 8 years old. Can we apply? So for the big scheme, there is a mandate that the company has to be less than 5 years old. But having said that, there are many other schemes that are available for startups in the scale-up stage. If you already have a product and you are moving towards large-scale validations or even large-scale manufacturing, there are many other investment opportunities that are available. I would urge you to look at the CCAMP website, and I will also again put in the link in the chat box toward the end of the program. And you can consider applying for all of these other investment opportunities. For the big scheme, only startups that are less than 5 years old can apply. Purani has asked, is it possible to get funding for marine biotech or microbe area for medicinal agricultural products? Yes, all of this would fall within the scope of the big scheme, so you can most certainly apply. Krishna Srinivasan, who do we compete with? If you could give an idea on number of applications received and the success rate. Do someone with an early stage idea and an establishing proof of concept compete with someone who has accomplished proof of concept? Okay, so this is a tricky question. So it's very, very dependent on the quality of applications in that particular call. Of course, the big grant is an extremely competitive grant, and considering that there are a lot of applications that are received from all over the country, the success rate is typically about 5 to 10% that are ultimately selected for funding. Do you compete with somebody who has proof of concept? Of course, anybody who has preliminary data who's already de-risked their technology to a certain level will definitely, be viewed more favorably. But that doesn't mean that if you have an excellent idea and you believe that it has potential, you won't be funded. It's just that if you do have some data, it always helps. But again, it's very dependent on the theme, the sector that you're working in. So we understand that while for some sectors it's easy to get data, for some other sectors like drugs, etc., which involves a lot of capital and resources, it may not be so easy to get some preliminary data. But yes, if you do have data, it always helps. Vishal, anything you want to add there?
I think you've covered it nicely there. Yes, but given if you are not really competing with someone who already has a POC, right? Because the grant is meant from idea to POC. But yes, as Nilanjana was saying, that if you have some data, it supports your claim, right? Your idea appears less risky and more feasible. And as we discussed today, that the feasibility aspect is very important, especially in life science area where everything essentially will take very long. So it becomes very difficult for a reviewer to recommend your proposal, given it will take quite a long time before they actually come to know whether your idea works or not. So everyone would want to play safe in some ways. And your any data that you have, if you do not have data, can you back up your claims based on literature? At least whatever you say makes sense in terms of science that is known at the time and supports your claims. That also helps. If you're proposing something that cannot be explained clearly, then you are in trouble. So yes, having data helps, but if you can support your claim by published literature, that also is as good.
Thanks, Vishal. Meet has asked, for startups with an existing product, can they apply for the big grant if they're building a new product for a new market? Yes, you can apply as long as your project has some amount of R&D remaining, but you will also need to justify to the panel the stage of your existing product. If you've already commercialized and you have some revenues, you will have to explain why you're seeking a grant. But yes, technically you can apply for a new project as long as that existing project has not been funded before through PIC. You can avail of the scheme only once, but if you're applying for the first time or you're getting the grant for the first time, then yes, you would still be eligible, provided that the project is within the POC stage. Is there any age limit for individual applicants for BIG? No, there is no age limit. The only criterion is that you should have finished your graduation, basic graduation, BSc, BCom, in any sector, any BTech, engineering graduate, medical graduate. So basic qualification criteria is you should have finished your bachelor's degree. Is a letter of intent similar to a letter of recognition? No, letter of intent for incubation is something that you will get from an incubation center, which will state that that incubation center will be willing to host you on their campus as an incubatee if you're awarded the grant. If you're already incubated, then you can submit your incubation agreement. If you have not yet identified an incubation center, then CCAMP will be happy to provide a letter of intent for incubation so that you can complete your application. Can we get the mail ID to send mail to get format for academia? So yes, let me just do that right away. I'll put it in the chat box here. ccamp_big@ccamp.res.in. So that's up in the chat box. You can write to us on any of these, on this email ID for any queries that you may have. The next question is in Hindi. Vishal, if you could help me out here. Anupam Kumar.
Yeah, struggling to find the question itself. We can move on to the next one. I can come back to this.
Okay. Chandrasekhar has asked, is it possible to avail CCAMP facility even if you're not incubated? If yes, what are the procedures involved? What are the benefits to the startup? And is it possible to avail bioinformatics support? Yes, so even if you're not incubated at CCAMP, we offer some of our technology platforms as a service model. So basically you can send us your samples and we have scientists, in-house CCAMP scientists who will work on your samples and give you the results. So that is possible, and the details again are available on our website. You can also write to us at the following email address. I will just put that out again here. services@ccam.res.in. I'll move on to the next one. Will the DST submitted projects be redirected to BIRAC? Any possibility? So no, BIRAC is from the Department of Biotechnology. So there's no redirection that happens from DST to DBT. Sometimes projects that are submitted to BIG but may not be within the scope of BIG, if the committee feels that the project is at a more advanced stage, they may direct the project to another scheme within BIRAC. But across departments, it generally does not happen. You will have to submit a fresh application for the BIRAC schemes.
That comment is not a question. It's more of a comment.
Okay.
Mr. Anupam Kumar feels that the word deadline is sort of obstructive to the innovation development process. If you are thinking about deadline for application, then 15 Feb is the deadline for this call, but hopefully another call will come in another 6 months. So you have 6 months to prepare if you plan to apply in the next call.
Thanks, Vishal. The next question is from Dr. Prakash. Can we do experiments in HIV and cancer monkey models in CCAM? So at CCAM, we don't have large animal facility at the moment.
You need CRO support for something like this.
Yes.
Look at very specific set of CROs.
Yeah, we would suggest that you contact a CRO who will be able to help you with this. Krish, if I'm applying via startup company, is it necessary to be a shareholder? Yes, you have to mandatorily be a shareholder in the company. There is no minimum or maximum limit. You can hold as little as 1% or as much as 100%, 99% of the company. But yes, you have to have shares in the company if you're applying through the startup category. Taru Agarwal, can you help an individual with scalable business idea to create a team? I'm not sure I get the question here. If you want help with your business plan, yes, we can help you. Like I said, please submit your the rough draft of your proposal to us, and we'll advise you on how to structure your business. And to create a team,
I think here I would suggest, why not you look at your proposal and think about what all set of expertise would be required. So if you yourself is an expert in that area, and more or less whatever is required you can do on your own, then great. You would still possibly need a support from someone who can help you with business matters. So for instance, do you know anyone else who has a startup or a company, or who works in a company, or possibly has an MBA degree, right? These are all similar, smaller ways in which you can identify potential team members. But a team is sort of a core to the success of an innovation, and this is going to be very, very close. So it would be wrong of us to say that, why don't you have this guy on your team? Team should come from you. I mean, your members should come from you, whom you plan to collaborate and partner with.
Murugan has asked, I have received grant from SIBRI and SPERSH for different ideas. Now I have a new idea and I am a startup running for 4.5 years. Can I apply under BIG? So you can apply. There's no, it will not disqualify you from applying, but you will have to justify to the committee what happened to those other two ideas that were funded earlier, SIBRI and SPERSH. At what stage are they? Why are you applying for another idea through BIG? And if those other two ideas are already successful and are running well, then they may suggest and ask you to focus on getting those two into the product, into the market before you start with a new idea. So it's a call that you will have to take. You would still be eligible to apply, but it's something that you'll have to justify to the committee as to why you're applying. You feel that BIG would be the right scheme for you if you already got SIBRI and SPERSH for two other ideas.
Dr. Prakash, if not readily
available, can we develop humanized monkey and humanized mice model R&D project in CCAM? So again, at CCAM, we don't have the required approvals for a large animal facility, including, I am not very sure about humanized mice model, but as far as to my knowledge, we don't have the required facility, in-house facility and approvals for project like this. It would be better to, there are many CROs who already perform these sort of studies for startups and individual innovators. So it will be better to probably approach CRO for help with this. Virtual incubation is possible. Yes, like I mentioned, you don't have to be in Bangalore to be associated with CCAMP. If you're awarded the big scheme, you automatically become a CCAMP startup, regardless of where you are in the country. We also have a separate virtual incubation program, which offers a lot more in terms of connect, networking, mentorship, etc., which you can explore. Can we isolate amino acids and enzymes from pulses and supply them to pharma companies? Do you provide funding for this? Vishal, would you like to take that?
So can we isolate amino acid and enzyme? So as a project proposal, if you're offering this just as a service and the process followed, etc., is not really novel, then it will become difficult. If you are proposing something which, let's say, ends up yielding a new IP, or you end up creating a trade secret, which is a process which you follow and it's much more efficient than whatever is currently available, then you can apply this idea for BIG. And we can see this will be a service model if you plan to do it yourself. But then the technology that ever you're proposing, the idea that whatever you're proposing should be scientifically backed and should be known and should be more efficient. So whatever is currently known, it should be better than that. It's still worth a shot.
Thanks, Vishal. Vivekanand again, if virtual incubation is possible, are there any charges? So again, it is very dependent on the model and your requirements. So I would urge you to write to us and we'll be able to connect you with the right team who will be able to give you more details. You can write to us at the ccamp_big email ID and we'll forward it to the concerned team. Dr. Dilip has written, we have developed an alternative for plastic and non-woven bags and looking for investor as TRL is up to 8. We have developed Cotto Plast and function as a 6-year-old company. So for companies that are in the late stage, we have investment opportunities and you can write to us again at funding@ccam.res.in. And we will provide you with the details of the other investment opportunities that we have at CCAM. Can CCAM connect us to investors directly? Yes, if you're associated with CCAM, if you're a CCAM startup, you're either incubated with us or associated with us through one of our other schemes. We also provide connects with investors. We also run something called Meet the Investors program. This happens on a regular basis every 3 to 4 months. There's a program where we send out a call for applications for startups who would like to pitch to investors. So you can consider applying for that program. Please do follow us on our Twitter platform, ccamp_Bangalore. All of our updates are put up on Twitter, and do keep an eye out for this program. It's called Meet the Investors. I've answered the next question. Alternative protein or plant-based meat domain be considered? Yes, for big, anything that has application in life sciences will be considered. So alternative meat alternatives and plant-based meat proteins will be applicable under PIG, under the industrial biotech sector. Northeast and eastern part of India is far behind. Is there any special encouragement scheme for the Northeast? So BIRAC ran a special call of the Biotech Ignition Grant only for the Northeast, a couple of calls back. I think it was a year and a half back. And they will be running a few other programs specific to the Northeast. So do keep an eye out on the, again, BIRAC themselves, they have a Twitter platform and they have a few special programs for Northeast startups. So you can keep an eye out for that. And from CCAMP, we are also trying to make a dedicated effort in this space. So you can reach out to us, and if you have connects in the Northeast, we'll be happy to speak to the other people as well and help them, encourage them to sort of apply for the scheme and get supported. List of POCs approved till date. So again, on our website, we have a list of startups that have been funded through the big scheme and other schemes. The whole list is available. We have over 250 startups that we have funded through CCAMP scheme so far. So the complete list is available on our website. Surojit Das has asked, I'm working as faculty in State University in West Bengal. If I need any lab experiment support from Incubator, how can I take facility from CCAM? So again, a list of services that we offer is available on our website under our technology platforms link. And you can write to us at services@ccam.res.in with details of your experiment and the service that you want to avail. And our team will get back to you with additional details. Punita has asked, I'm a postdoctoral fellow, not on any permanent position. Do I need NOC from institute? Even if my idea is not linked to my research? Yes, if you're a postdoc, you're still drawing salary from the university, so you will need no objection certificate from your institute. Is there any incubation charge for big incubating? If yes, elaborate. So again, the model varies depending on which theme you are, what your requirements are, etc. So if you could write to us, we will be happy to get back to you with the list of facilities that we have and also the breakup of charges. For the big scheme, at the moment, you don't have to incubate. You can, again, just get a letter of intent from CCAM and complete your application. The charges are varied depending on your requirements. There are different charges for medtech, different charges for molecular biology companies because of the different nature of lab equipment that is required. So it will depend very much on the theme in which you're operating. Punita Sharma, does data generated on a personal basis and not in any formal academic institution is eligible and need to be included in the proposal? Vishal, would you like to take that?
So you can always mention and you can specify how your data was generated, but any data if you have is always welcome. I wouldn't understand the specific case, so I can always relate to, let's say, an agri-related exercise. If something that you have done in a small little field of your own, you can share those findings. Yes, someone could argue this is not published, but given if you can present it well and you can defend it, you can always show it. But you will have to tell them exactly what you have done and how you've done
it. Paramasivan has asked, the idea is promising, but proof of concept is not ready. Can I apply for PIC? Yes. So if you have an idea and you have some preliminary data, but are within the proof of concept stage, you can definitely apply for PIC as long as it is in the life sciences domain. Dr. Aslam has asked, in case of award, not very sure what that means. I'll move to the next one, Dr. Harinath. I am developing neonatal jaundice measurement device. Is it possible to get a neonatologist from CCAM? So I would suggest that you approach an advisor, mentor in this specific sector, a doctor, a clinician that you may be in touch with. At the moment, no, at CCAM, we don't have a neonatologist. While we may be able to provide you with some connects at a later point, for an early stage startup, I would urge you to form your team and advisors from the connects that you have, because they will be involved in your project right from the beginning and would know how, what is the best way to advise you on the project. Missed the meeting. We have a link on YouTube that will be active for a while. You can always look. Debashini, if you could please confirm, the link will be active for some time, right?
Yes, the link will be active, so they can check the recording there. Yes.
Thank you. Thanks. Aslam has asked, Dr. Aslam, can I get guidance on actual cost that I need to pay for using CCAM facilities? Again, that will depend on the kind of services you need. So I would suggest that you drop us an email with the details and we will get back to you with an approximate cost. Can you fund CRO model proposals? I think we may require more details on the kind of model you're talking about. So if you're asking, can we support services, support a service model? Yes, it's possible, but you will have to, again, specify who your customers are, what kind of model you're providing, what kind of service you're providing. Is it novel? And is there a gap in the sector that you are looking to address? So those things will have to be kept in mind when you're submitting your application.
There might be some stuff in the chat box.
Yes, there are.
Let me just go through that.
Dr. Srinivasan.
Vishal, if you can start, I'm looking for the questions.
Okay. Good afternoon. We have been doing research-based nutraceutical preparations from traditional pigmented rice varieties based on our locality. West Tanjavur is best rice bowl of Tamil Nadu. We've been doing research, seed support for requested to director funding scheme. So if any of these are whatever you've listed, PCOS and for pigmented rice varieties, etc. If any of these are you are developing something which is novel, which is impactful, as we discussed in the talk today, feel free to apply for BIG. I'm assuming you're not a startup at the moment. So other schemes which Dr. Nilanjana spoke about would not apply to you, but BIG being open to anyone and everyone, feel free, let's give it a shot and see. You can apply all of your ideas because there is no limit. Your only one of your ideas will get funded, but you can apply as many ideas. So your agri related or the healthcare PCOS related idea, both can be applied. Next is Chandrasekhara. Is it possible?
I found the thread. Yeah. Is it possible to avail CCAM facility for research and development? I think I answered this question. So you can write to us at services@ccam.res.in and we'll get back to you with the details. Joby, I think I answered this also. What does novel mean in scientific idea stage? Okay, this I think Vishal has answered this. Plant-based protein, meat alternative, yes, would be eligible. Having the same panel to all proposal is difficult, is what we found during the last meet. We need CCAM experts' view once we are rejected so that we can come back with the relevant information to convince the panel. So the same panel does not review all the proposals. If you mean the online, actual presentation stage, like I said, there are 5 different panels that evaluate the proposal based on the theme under which your proposal falls. But nevertheless, we'll be, of course, more than happy to help you incorporate the comments that you have received last time and give you some suggestions on how to improve further. So do write to us with your proposal and the comments that you have received from the previous presentation round, and we will get back to you. Team has to be with marketing expert. Vishal?
So marketing expert sounds more like a very specific thing, something that you would need much later. So by that means, no, but marketing is part of your business plan, right? So if you have a business mentor, someone who has a business expertise, either has a business of their own or come from that domain, or at least educated in that domain, as I mentioned in the beginning, someone who has an MBA or someone who has a startup can actually help. But in terms of specifics, yes, you do not really need to have a marketing expert at the start. But it would be good to have a business related person to help you if clearly your proposal is something that would need a very strong business push later on. So for instance, if you are going to go into manufacturing process or a services model, a business related expert, and even so for that matter, a marketing expert would be needed, but a specific aspect like marketing expert may not be needed at the time of application. A business mentor would help.
Dr. Dilip, I think we answered this question. Punita also have answered this. You will need an NOC.
So if a postdoc applies and when they get the grant, they leave their position, do they still need NOC?
Yes, for the application, they will still require an NOC as long as they're applying, as long as they're working in a university, they will require no objection certificate.
Next is Natarajan Ganapathi. When we go from idea to product through process, it requires pilot plant trials and popularization of the idea based on results from pilot plant trials. How big scheme will channelize this? So trials, etc., mostly sound like a very late stage validation, isn't it? That would be possibly TRL 6, 7 or so. So maybe that is outside the purview of BIG, but we can always discuss this in more specific terms. If you're still doing a very early pilot stage, small scale culture or a mid-level culture, then yes, BIG still is applicable. Funding for both would be around 10 lakhs, I'm guessing, and duration 6 months to 12 months. We can possibly discuss this offline. Feel free to write to us at ccam_BIG, because this sounds like a very specific case. So we'd be happy to look at more details.
Suvakshan, I think Northeast, we discussed this. Neonatal jaundice.
I would like to add there one thing, that the slides, what you saw were basically startups that are connected with CCAM, right? And every connection is always a proximity effect, right? So if you are in Bangalore, our first level of connections will always be Bangalore, then closer to Bangalore, and hence on. So it doesn't really mean that the numbers that you saw in Northeast are low. Having said so, we would be very happy to connect with anyone, and at any stage of innovation development, whether it is an academician or a startup or BIG, or even like through that virtual incubation program, as Nilanchana mentioned, that you do not have to be in CCAMP or in Bangalore to get connected with Northeast. So any innovator out there who feels that connection with CCAMP will help, with pushing their innovation towards commercialization, development, or even for R&D work, feel free to write to us. We're always open, and you don't have to be here. You don't have to be incubated. You don't have to be physically here for any sort of interactions.
Neonatal jaundice, we went through this. Sibri and Sparsh, we went through. Punita, I am from Delhi. Do I need to be incubated at CCAMP or IIT Delhi-based incubator? So you can apply through CCAMP with CCAMP as your big partner. You don't have to move base to Bangalore to apply with CCAMP. Rajiv Sharma, as an individual MD microbiology, will big scheme be good to apply for cancer therapy identifying diagnostic, hopefully leading on to gene/cell therapy production facility in 2 to 4 years?
So I'm sort of confused here, because your initial idea is diagnostic and then you're going into therapy. So how are the two connected? But yes, diagnostic per se is fairly welcomed in BIG, and so is the therapy thing. I still could not understand the connect from diagnostic to the therapy one.
And both also there's a follow-up question on this lab work is done by a partner in US, and data has been published with me owning exclusivity to take it out of lab in India to commercialize. Will that be eligible? I think we can discuss this further. If you could write to us, we can connect with you and sort of discuss this in more detail.
But here, ownership of the idea would be very important. So for instance, if you've done some work in US and it's owned by a US university or organization, then it becomes difficult. You'll have to show what you are bringing here and how does that belongs to you. But as Ranjana mentioned, we would be happy to look at it individually. Manish Thakur.
As an individual applicant or early stage group, is it difficult to provide business? It is difficult to provide business related details. How does it affect the application? How can I get LOI? Please repeat procedure. Okay, so for an individual, we understand that the proposal is in an early stage. So the business plan may change, but the reviewers want you to have a basic idea of how you're going to take it into the market. They want to know that you have the plans of taking it into the market. So like I mentioned, we'll be happy to help you. You can write, you can send us your proposal, a draft, and we will help you with your business plan and give you a few tips on what you can include as part of your business plan in the proposal. How does it affect application? While again, like I mentioned, the reviewers understand that it's early stage, they want to see some direction, some vision on how the product is going to go into the market, some idea from the team on how to commercialize this. That is quite an important aspect in the review process. How can I get LOI? So you can write to us, and there's a link, a Google link that we will send to you. You can specify the title of your project and your full name, and we will generate a letter of intent. So please do write to us at ccamp_BIG, and we will get back to you on that. I think I've answered the rest. Can Karpagam has asked, can a design patent be applied, which is in the process of examination? So yes, you can apply for a design patent, and even if the patent examination is in process, you can still apply for the big scheme. If a patent is granted or published before the deadline, you can provide additional details. Otherwise, you can say that the patent application is in process, examination is in process, and once the presentation round comes through, maybe at that point you can provide more details. So all the reviewers and committee members, panelists who will review your proposal have signed an NDA and confidentiality agreement with CCAMP and BIRAC, but it's not mandatory for you to disclose anything that you're not comfortable disclosing. But again, we leave it to the individual applicant to decide on how much he or she wants to disclose. Because sometimes if you don't disclose anything, it becomes very difficult to judge the proposal, to review the proposal fairly. So we urge you to disclose as much as you can, so that the reviewer can sort of review your proposal with enough details. Pilot plant trials, I think Vishal answered this. Natarajan Ganapathi, my query has been raised before Mr. Dilip. Did I answer the question? Mr. Natarajan, if you're around, you can unmute yourself and ask us your query and we will answer if we have not done so already. In the meantime, I will see if
biological waste management will be proposed under which category?
Industrial biotechnology. So you would apply under the IBT scheme. Can we submit the idea or proposal which is under process for patenting? Yes, you can submit. I answered this question in my previous response. So you, depending on the state of your patent, you can choose to disclose as much as you are comfortable disclosing. Veerabhadra Swami. Yes. Yeah.
Nilanjana, we have two people who have raised their hands. Can we maybe unmute them and so that they can ask you their question?
Sure. Yes.
Okay. Sonal, if you can please unmute Nilambika.
Sure. Nilambika, you're unmuted now.
Nilambika, can you please unmute yourself and ask your question?
Hello, Nilambika, can you hear us?
Okay, there seems to be some.
Yes, doctor, I don't have any questions. Sorry.
Oh, okay. All right. Okay.
Sorry.
Dr. Saroj Yadav.
Dr. Saroj, if you can please unmute yourself and ask your question.
No, madam, sorry, I don't have.
Oh, okay. All right. Okay, then I think we'll just proceed with the chat box if anything is left there.
Yeah, I was just seeing, I think I have answered most queries. There's one from Paramasivan. Can an Icmr scientist start a startup with CCAM guidance and collaboration? So yes, please do write to us and we'll connect with you to discuss in more detail. First step would of course be for an individual would be the Biotech Ignition grant. So do consider applying for that. I think I've covered most of the questions that are up.
Yeah, there doesn't seem to be anything from YouTube either. So
Okay, so if there are any further queries, if you could raise your hand, we will unmute you. If not, if you'd like to connect to us, then you can separately write to us offline at ccamp_big at ccamp.res.in, and we will get back in touch with you. So if there are no further questions, then let me proceed to just thanking all of you for your time today. And I'd like to reiterate that the big scheme, the current call closes on Feb 15th, 2022. And the deadline is 5:30 p.m. So this is the 20th call for applications, and you can send us your proposals, a draft of your proposals over email, and we'll be happy to provide you with feedback on that. Email ID is ccamp_big at ccamp.res.in. The last date is Feb 15, 2022. Feb 15, 2022, 5:30 p.m. That is the deadline. And all applications have to be submitted on the BIRAC portal. And we also urge you to please finish your application, submit them by 14th evening, because on 15th, there are a lot of people trying to log in, and sometimes there are issues with the server. Sometimes people miss on the deadline. So don't wait till the last minute. Submit your applications. Keep your applications ready at least 1 or 2 days in advance and submit it by Feb 14th night. Don't wait till the last minute to submit your application. There's just one question which I'll just answer quickly. Can we choose a team member or a marketing or business development who already have a business? To business, I mean a register. So basically, if I understand correctly, you want to know if you can choose a team member who already has business, who already has a registered company. So you can have them as an advisor if you're an individual. If you're applying as a startup and they're part of your team, then they have to qualify the eligibility criteria. But yes, in a nutshell, you can, provided that they're not already founders of another successful biotech company. My question is not, sorry.
There's one by Dr. Swami. His original question was that he's trying to submit a grant for UGC or other agencies where there's no success. So he's asking if there is any other platform for proposal submission in life sciences in botany. So if it's an idea for innovation, then certainly BIG is one particular avenue for you. Apart from that, if it is just core research, then again you will go back to the classical BST and other science-related, research-related agencies. If you're proposing an innovation, then yes, BIG is open. I think that is it.
Research related. So research related, you would have to apply for the other DBT, DST grants, which are available to academic institutes. For BIG, the mandate is that the research has to be commercialized. So if you intend to take the product or technology into the market, then BIG would be applicable. Otherwise, it's probably better to apply to a research grant.
Okay.
Okay. Okay. Thank you all, and thank you Debashini for facilitating this. Thank you, Sonal.
Thank you. Thanks to Sonal mostly. Okay, I think it was great to have you all here today, and the YouTube video is going to be live. We are not taking it down anytime soon. So if you want to see the recording, please just look at the YouTube link. All right. Thank you then, everybody. Sonal, we can close now, I think.